Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. Today we're doing some more work on the Swifter 26. This is from U-Build RC. And I'm putting links in my description for this. Let's get right to it. One of the things whenever I get a boat, and it really annoys me, is the hatch doesn't fit. And you got to go through and sand it and fit it. And okay, now the hatch fits. Some boats come and the hatch fits perfect. A lot of these fiberglass boats come and the hatch needs a little fitting. Yesterday, I talked you through setting up to blueprint sponsons. Well, look at here, boys and girls. Look at here. The epoxy I use, the hardener has a blue tint to it, and when I mix it up with shredded fiberglass, it gets this sort of blue-greenish gray color. And you can see how the blue-greenish gray color gets thicker towards the ends here. You can actually see it here, and you can see it on the edges, and you can see how it kind of comes up along these edges. Now, these are pretty close. I'm going to come in with a bead of epoxy, and there's a couple of nicks and chips here along the corners and in these corners, so these will get filled up and sanded flush. So these are coming along real nice. If you look at them now, you'll see that they are dead flat. At least that much of them is dead flat this way, dead flat that way. It's dead flat every which way. There's no light coming under here at all. That's how you want a sponson. You want these corners so sharp you can cut your finger on them. This one you want the sharpest of all, which is why I'm not sanding it yet. I'm going to come in here with my little sanding block and take care of it. So there you go, working on the hull. The next thing I did was take a closer look at the equipment they gave me and decide what I'm going to do. This cable's an odd size. It's almost, but not quite, a .150. It's a little bit short. And one of my viewers said, you could put some solder on the end of that. Yeah, I could. Or I've had this piece of .187 cable in my box of cables, and it's too long and it's too stiff and it doesn't fit. And why not just go uber heavy duty and put it in here and be done with it? I wasn't totally keen on the idea of this rudder behind the prop on a hydroplane, although I must admit, this is a really nice rudder. I mean, there's no slop in it at all. It's very nicely done. But, and it limits you to 4mm props, and there's a much better selection of 3/16 props. So I'm going to put this in the drawer and use this. Another thing about this is it's got a really long bearing area, whereas the bearing area is only about, maybe half an inch long, 3/4 of an inch. And the same thing for this. The bearing area goes up to, about here. So I've got an inch of support. I think the Speedmaster is a bit longer, So it'll give you more support here on the shaft. And the more support you can get, the truer things are going to run, and just the more better it's going to be all around. The coupler that they gave me is going into my drawer of couplers. That's a perfectly decent coupler. This, you're going to like this. First, let's talk about this before I talk about that. This is an ER11 collet holder. It mounts on a 5mm shaft with 2 set screws. And even says ER11 5mm. And what you do is, when you have like a CNC machine, the motor has a 5mm shaft. Sometimes they have an 8mm shaft. And this is the collet holder that goes on the drill head of your CNC mill. And in it, you put these collets. And these collets will hold your tool, your little mill, your drill, your mill and a drill. That's about all you're going to put in there. But it holds your tool, and, this powers up and does all the cutting. So this is an E11 collet. And it goes in this E11R collet holder. Well, no. Look at here, boys and girls. This is the Speedmaster large bore. I think these are available in 5mm bore and 8mm bore. And this is the Speedmaster large coupler. Well, let's open it up and see what we have. Why, Shazam, boys and girls. It's an ER11 collet. The Speedmaster coupler is nothing more than a collet holder. Well, guess what? Collets are available in all sizes, metric and imperial, and you can probably find them in Whitworth if you looked. So, for you guys running big motors, especially those of you that have motors with 8mm shafts, look at these Speedmaster couplers, because you can get any size collet you want for your Speedmaster coupler. Okay, so there's the info on the collet. If you don't mind the look, you got to always just run this on your motor with the 8mm shafts. You're going to have really big motors. And so the rotating mass of this thing isn't going to be critical. It's there, it does have some rotating mass, but you've got to have some sort of coupler. And this is bomb-proof. It's ironclad. I was digging through my box of Servos and said, well, this is overkill. It's uberkill, but you know what? It fits. I'm going to use it because I have it. It's going to have to lay down. I can't stand it up. The push rod would be coming out the top of the transom. It's got to lay down. And for lay down in hydroplanes, I like to put the things in an angle so I can get at the mount. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this. I may have a mount where you have a plate that screws down on top of it and holds it firm against some sort of base. So that's what that's going to get. Motor mount, you know, I really like these mounting rings. And now this motor mount's supposed to have this at this end and this at that end. And this is just to hold the end of the motor from shaking and putting a load basically on these screws here. But I'm tempted to, you can buy just these rings. I'm tempted to get a couple of these rings and, you know, with some fiberglass or some G10, make up a mount. Boy, how hard is it going to be to make a mount with 2 holes drilled in it? I guess it would have 4 holes for 2 of them. But I may just look at mounting my motor that way, because it's such a pain in the rear trying to get at these bolts. They're facing upwards. And yeah, you can get a flex drive and get in there, but still it's a bitch getting them started. It's, you know, it would be just nicer to just drop the thing in and a couple of screws and you're done. So I'm going to look at that as a way of doing this. Now, back to hull prep. One of my viewers said, why not use powdered graphite in your epoxy mix? And quite frankly, I've done that before, several times, as a matter of fact. When you're doing the last little buildup of epoxy on your ride surface, mix in powdered graphite with it. And the reason for that, a lot of people don't understand, but what happens is water sticks to the somewhat semi-porous, rough surface of the graphite, because the surface is really, graphite, it is like a deck of cards, little tiny cards. And so water can kind of stick in between the cards without really messing up the cards too much. They're waterproof cards. So water shears off of water almost frictionless. Water shears off a nice, smooth, waxed surface with a little bit more friction. So the water actually sticks to your smooth, finished surface, be it epoxy, paint, whatever, but the water sticks to that, or it doesn't shear as easily as against water shearing against water. And so that was the whole point of the graphite, that the water would adhere to it and you'd get a better shear between the water molecules. Here we go on molecular stuff again. But that's where it is. Now, there's a couple of reasons I'm not doing it on this boat. If I were building something to set absolute world records and be the fastest thing I could possibly make, absolutely I would do that. If I'm building something to be bomb-proof and just go run around and smack into ducks, a good smooth surface, square surface, sharp surface, that's all I need. I don't need the extra little 0.1%. And furthermore, sanding that stuff makes a mess. It just makes a mess. Everything turns to black dust. There's blackness everywhere. So there you go. I'm going to mix up some epoxy this morning, run a little bead along the edges, cook it off, sand it off, and see you tomorrow. I've got 3 projects working. This, the tunnel, and of course the tide. The tide, I have to take out the bandsawns cut some foam and decide what I want to do with the foam. Do I want to do it now? Do I want to do it later? Do I want to use, construction foam? Do I want to use pool noodle foam? A whole bunch of choices. So I'll be working on that too. But since this was gifted to me, I will work on this as diligently as possible. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.